Okay, so we're a couple weeks into this format now with the most recent selection pack featuring all of these new decks that you see up here. And we also got a Banlist announcement recently. So, perfect time to do a tier list on the current Master Duel format. And I'm not going to cover decks that aren't in the game yet. Basically, cards from the new selection pack, because even though there's a lot of, cards we can make educated guesses on that will be in the new selection pack, we don't know the exact cards. So until the cards are announced and we know for sure what we're getting in the new selection pack, I'm just going to be covering the decks that are currently in Master Duel right now. And maybe when when we know what's actually coming next month, then I'll update this tier list then. But yeah. So first, let's start off with the new deck from a recent pack that everybody is playing and talking about. Clearly, Mikanko, right? Mikanko. Remember from the end of the December pack where we got the alt arts and the pack with the guaranteed royal. Yeah, Mikanko got new support in that. And where do I think Mikanko ranks in this current format? I'm really sorry if this is gonna upset people. I don't think here's the thing about Mikanko is that the new support for Mikanko, it helps Mikanko in a way that makes you play pure Mikanko, because you got new cards that improve consistency and add searches from the deck and so on, but all of them lock you into Mikanko. So you have to play pure Mikanko, and you have to play. A lot of people are playing the blind second build, the OTK, ramming into your opponent's monsters to a couple times to OTK them, and I don't think that kind of playstyle, mainly the blind second type, is really that great in Master Duel, or has been for a while now, because making your opponent go second, or making your opponent go first willingly, just feels terrible considering how powerful all the decks are right now, and what kind of combos and end boards they can end on. And yeah, I also don't think that is the best way to play Mikanko. Nor do I think that Mikanko is even the best deck with the gimmick of having your small monsters ram into your opponent's bigger monsters to deal damage to them. But that will be a little. We'll go over that a bit later when we cover the other deck that has that same gimmick. But yeah, I always thought that Mikanko is the most successful way to play Mikanko has been the warrior combo swap pile, with Isoda, and you played Mikanko cards as basically warrior facilitators to make Isoda and then combo off turn one. That way, at least that kind of deck, it has a very good win condition going first, and if you do win the coin flip, you have an advantage there. It's very hard to stop with traditional hand traps because the deck plays so many extenders. But when you're playing a gold second deck with Mikanko, you don't have any free wins. You don't have any easy wins. There's no you put two warriors in the field with a Mikanko card, and then you resolve a Soda, and then you auto win the game. There is no auto wins when you're playing a gold second deck. You just have to wait in for your opponent to do their full ass combo, and then hopefully they don't have more interruptions than you have cards in hands, which clearly most of the time they will. So it's always a struggle. And then if you fail to OTK them, they're gonna have all the follow-up that they generated from their first turn combo in order to overwhelm you and probably OTK you back on turn 3, and they get 2 turns to your 1 turn. It's all bad when you're going second in Yu-Gi-Oh, even when you intentionally want to. And I will say there's one thing about Mikanko that's maybe somewhat interesting, and it's that you have Huli, which is kind of hard to out for some decks. By some decks, I mean pretty much exactly Yummy with a specific extra deck. That if they don't run outs the Huli that can't be targeted or destroyed, then you could get into a prolonged game state where they just you can just sit on a Huli for a while. How you're gonna win from that position, it's kind of a bigger question. But yeah, provided your Yummy opponent isn't playing a very specific out to it, such as I've seen Silvera, I've seen Trish play the level 6 White Dwarf Synchro Silvera to book other monsters. That isn't out to Huli, unfortunately. But I mean, that's not really a reliable out, because it depends on your opponent's extra deck, and it doesn't even work against all the top decks, because Draco Tail eats literally one Malulu just outs the Huli lock. So it's it's not even really that much of a thing. It's just something random that can happen if your opponent is not prepared for it. But you're, you know, given the other decks that are in the format, I think your opponents are already prepared for towers-like cards. And Huli isn't even a real towers, so unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put this down here. I'm really sorry. I don't think this is the meta for Mikanko. It's a bit too high powered for it, in my opinion. And yeah, one of the decks contributing to the high power level of the format obviously is Yummy. So we got 4 Yummy variants right here, and I'm gonna be honest, most of these Yummy variants play largely very similar. The only one that's like a really outlier is Yummy Mitsurugi. So with that, I'm gonna rank all of these Yummy decks around the same because, like, frankly, they're all mostly the same deck, except for the Yummy Mitsurugi, which you know, we'll put these in tier 1. And I think the order, I think Yummy Mitsurugi is the best one out of all of the Yummy variants, and I'll order the other 3 Yummy variants as we go. But yeah, Yummy Mitsurugi has the highest ceiling. It's the one that's basically is you can't board breaker. Like, Yummy Mitsurugi is the reason why you can't reliably use board breakers on Yummy decks, because if you let the Yummy Mitsurugi deck full combo, they will not just have the Yummy interruptions, they will also have an Omni negated with the Purification to block any board breakers, and also have a more layered interruption off of prayers, you know, being able to revive more Akumo and have Futu on the field for protection and making it hard ODK. Like, it's just, if the Yummy Mitsurugi deck does its full combo, it's basically like a pseudo FTK. There's pretty much almost no combination of cards you can do to beat it, even somewhat consistently. And yeah, I will say is that the one thing about Yummy Mitsurugi is that it has, compared to the other Yummy decks, the other Yummy variants, Yummy Mitsurugi has by far the least amount of room for non-engine. And in fact, you will often see Yummy Mitsurugi run half as many hand traps as pretty much any other Yummy variant, which is kind of an issue going second. Although admittedly, the Mitsurugi engine is also a way better engine for going second than you know, the actual Yummy cards. So you have a stronger engine for going second to push into decks. It's just that depending on what your opponent plays, it might not matter, because like Yummy Mitsurugi versus pure Yummy end board, like just straight up just Yummy interruptions, Mitsurugi cards can play into the normal Yummy end board, because all you have to really worry about is a Herald as the main threat. But the moment you summon Murakumo, their entire field is gone, and then the entire matchup turns on its head. And then, you know, the Mitsurugi cards also have advantages versus a deck like Draco Tail, because Murakumo forcing your opponent to discard, forcing a fusion deck that has the fuse cards from hand to discard a card, you know, every turn. That does stack up. But a lot of times your opponent isn't gonna end on a pure Yummy end board, because if your opponent adds anything else onto the Yummy end board besides just the Yummy interruptions, then it becomes exponentially harder for Mitsurugi to play into. For example, right, a pure Yummy end board with just a Herald and IP, like that's doable for Mitsurugi to play into. For Yummy Mitsurugi to play into, if they add like some random stuff on top of it, like if they're playing the Cupid pitch stuff with Thunder Dragon Colossus and you're playing Mitsurugi cards, that is yeah, Mitsurugi into a Thunder Dragon Colossus, for example, and a Portal Savage Dragon on top of the Herald is probably not really as doable. And then you know, if we're talking about Solfachord Yummy adds an Omni Negate on top of its end board with the Solfachord's Link monster, so you has more. It just has straight up more interruptions that you have to play through. And if any deck is playing a Fiendsmith, Fiendsmith cards such as Yummy Fiendsmith, which is also probably like the 4th most popular Yummy variant, then you know, they're gonna have a Caesar, and then Caesar versus Mitsurugi cards is also very hard to play into for the Mitsurugi. So like overall, in theory, even though Yummy Mitsurugi has an engine that can play going second better, a lot of the boards that you will play into going second are so strong that even Mitsurugi will struggle to play into it. And then that's where the lack of hand traps does hurt a little bit. So it's not consensus that Yummy Mitsurugi is the best way to play Yummy. Okay, this is something that can definitely be argued, but I'll just tentatively put it here for now. And then like we have to cover the other Yummy variants. So we have Pure, we have Solfachord, and we have Fiendsmith, which most of these play very similarly. They play like an actual Yummy deck, whereas Yummy Mitsurugi plays more like a Mitsurugi deck than a Yummy deck. These variants play more like a actual Yummy deck, played more like Pure. And I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Pure out of all of these is actually like the weakest of these variants. Mainly because Pure, number one, you know, if you're playing Pure and just playing no extra stuff, none of the Cupid Pitch stuff, none of Dragon Colossus and Brutal Savage combo, your end board is very fair to the point where it's actually possible to play into your end board, which is not as much the case for basically any other variant besides strictly Pure. And also, it has troubles going second, despite being able to run a ton of hand traps. It's hard to play into established interruptions with Yummy, especially monster removal, because you have way less pushes. Like, pretty much, if you go second and you have to play into any form of removal, and you don't Hard Omen Cupsy or Marshmallow, then like it's actually really a struggle. Whereas these other variants offer they play almost the same amount of non-engine and hand traps, slightly less, but they have better engines for pushing into, you know, removal and actual end boards, such as the Solfachord and Fiendsmith. So Solfachord, first of all, the idea of Solfachord is if you haven't read Solfachord Happiness, that card is fucking absolutely cracked out of its own mind. It's one of the craziest in archetype search cards I've ever seen. It's like Blue Eyes Wishes on crack. So you discard a card, not a cost, by the way, so if it gets asked, you actually don't discard yet, and then it adds 2 Solfachord monsters to your hand, and if you're going, and you can special summon one, and if you're going second, it lets you special summon Solfachord monsters up to the number of monsters your opponent controls +1, so if you're going second and your opponent controls a monster, you get this search 2 and then special summon 2. I mean, that's like actually crazy. That's a double E-Telly extender going second, and it is a double search plus an E-Telly going first. That's insane. That's one of the strongest pushes like available to Yummy decks in general. Because if you think about it, like all the Solfachord monsters you play are also like level 1s, and they can be converted into a Link 1 such as Linkaribo, and then you have a Link 1, and that's before you do any of your Yummy stuff. You don't need to control any monsters in order to Solfachord Happiness. So it addresses the issue Yummy has with dealing with monster removal, because Solfachord is just an extender that doesn't require you to control any monsters in order to use it. I mean, it's absolutely mad. And then on top of that, you know, the Solfachord stuff also gets you an extra interruption on your end board with the Omni Negate from the Link monster. So, yeah, and then the deck has also 3. The engine adds like 6 excellent starters to the deck, because you have like 3 happiness plus 3 of the new level 1 Solfachord monster that basically adds a Solfachord card from your deck to hand. So, you know, you can add normal summon to add happiness, and like, yeah, it makes you also better into hand traps, because what they if they see Solfachord Happiness, or if they see the card that searches happiness, I mean they gotta imperm that, they gotta ash it, they gotta use interruptions on it. Otherwise, like, if Solfachord Happiness resolves, I mean, it's like game over. Like, well, what are you, like, you just gave your opponent like two free monsters. Like, how are you ever gonna stop them at that point? And when they do inevitably hand trap your Solfachord cards, you know, you just go make Linkaribo, special Cupsy, GG, go next. And yeah, it plays better into boards because, again, it gives you extenders that don't require you to control a monster. And yeah, I will say the one thing, it adds 1 brick. So, you know, one out of the 8 cards you add to the deck is kind of a brick. There's like 2 monsters that you have to add as engine requirements. One of them is okay, where if you hard draw it, it's fine, you can still do a combo with it, but like, yeah, there's like 1 undesirable draw in that engine. And there's no, the thing about the Solfachord engine is that I don't think there's really a way to bridge Yummy cards into the Solfachord cards. Like, for example, you see the other variants with Mitsurugi and Fiendsmith. Obviously, it's very easy to, if you open Yummy cards, to bridge Yummy cards into the Mitsurugi cards, and it's very easy to bridge Yummy cards into Fiendsmith cards. But it's not, I don't think you can bridge Yummy cards into Solfachord cards themselves. So if you don't hard draw the Solfachord cards, then you're just playing pure Yummy at that point. Like, you're not adding to your end board. It requires you to draw the Solfachord cards themselves in order to hard draw the Solfachord cards in order to actually use the Solfachord cards. Like, imagine that concept, having to draw cards in order to be able to access the engine. Like, in 2026, that's a mind-blowing thing that you you can't just randomly search it out with any 2 monsters. You have to actually hard draw it. But when you do hard draw one of the, like the 6 good starters, which you are more likely to draw them than not, then you're playing a better pure version of the Yummy deck. So I think Solfachord Yummy it's like a pure Yummy deck that has a bunch of better starters than pure Yummy. And it only costs like a couple of slots in the extra deck, so it's not that big of an extra deck commitment either. So yeah, I really like Solfachord Yummy. I like, it might be a hot take, but I think Solfachord Yummy is better than pure Yummy, and I don't think it's even particularly close. But that might just be my own opinion and talking to too many Brazilian people. But yeah, another variant of Solfachord, like Solfachord, not Solfachord Yummy, that's like slightly popular is the Fiendsmith version of Yummy, which basically is Yummy end board, but you get to add a Caesar on top of it, and Caesar is one of the most. It's basically like the best generic end board piece in the game right now. Like, a lot of people are saying like, oh, what's wrong with Fiendsmith? Like, what's it's just Fiendsmith. Like, what is the issue with Fiendsmith? Well, the issue with Fiendsmith is that any deck can just add a Caesar on the end board, and Caesar literally is the best generic end board piece in this format because it's 2 special summon negates, and like, what deck does not special summon? So it's basically just 2 negates versus almost every deck right now. And the decks that Caesar aren't good against, well, they're falling in popularity, I will say, but we will get to some of those later in this list. But yeah, also the Fiendsmith cards provide you push. Lurie, at worst, if you draw Lurie, you can Lurie's special Requiem. Requiem is a link 1, by the way, and the moment you have Requiem, you can special some more Yummy monsters, so it gives you additional pushes right there. It's, yeah, I will say is that it just I like the Solfachord cards better as cards than the Fiendsmith cards. Like, straight up, Solfachord Happiness is better than any individual Fiendsmith card. It's not even close for that matter. But I will say is that Caesar is a better end board piece than the Solfachord Link monster, since Solfachord is just 1 negate, whereas Caesar is 2 negates. So, there's that. It also plays better into Nibiru slightly because you don't have to burn your Omni negate on the Nibiru. If you burn your Omni, if you burn a Caesar negate on Nibiru, the Caesar, like, the Nibiru goes away. You still have another negate off the Caesar. So it's yeah, but I do like these variants better than pure Yummy because again, they have more pushes and they're not as vulnerable to removal going second. Given the talk of the ban list, there's some people that have been hyping up Snake Eyes Yummy because Snake Eyes Oak is back, and like, I'm not even. I'll talk about Snake Eyes itself like separately when we get there, but I do not think Snake Eyes Yummy is like an actual real variant of Yummy compared to these 4. The main thing you gotta ask yourself is what is the weakness of Yummy, and what does Snake Eyes help with any of the weakness that Yummy has? Okay, so does it help with Maxi or Fugalos, the Snake Eyes cards? Absolutely not. They do not help at all against Fugalos, and especially against Maxi. Do they help with the removal of your normal summon, or do they help with removal of bodies preventing you from extending with your Yummy monsters? Kind of. You have some ways to extend with the Snake Eyes engine without using your normal summon, but like, it's like Bonfire add Poplar, which is like, okay, cool, that's good, but like, that assumes you draw the 1-off Bonfire and not draw the 1-off Poplar. It's like not really the most consistent or extender in the world. OSS requires you, Original Symbol Spoils requires you to control a face-up card already, so like, how are you gonna get the face-up card on the field without, when your normal summon gets nuked? Like, you can't even get the field spell to send the field spell because like, they were gonna remove your body before you get to the field spell. And like, there's Diabellstar, which, sure, if you play I don't even know if you play Diabellstar, but theoretically, if you play Diabellstar to set OSS to, get a level 1 monster from deck, I mean, that is just so vulnerable to all hand traps. Like, it removes one of the strengths of it makes one of the strengths, or it removes one of the strengths of Yummy monsters, which that they're very resilient into hand traps. Diabellstar is very weak into hand traps. It gets impermed, and you can't set OSS, then you suddenly don't have a level 1 body on the field that you can just turn into a Link 1. You just have a random level 7 body on the field that doesn't do anything to help you with extension. Or your OSS gets Ash, which is even worse. Then you just lose the Diabellstar body. You still don't have a level 1 monster. You can turn into a Link 1 to actually start playing your Yummy cards. So like, I don't... And like, the the Snake Eyes cards, they take up a lot of engine space as well if you want it to be like actually consistent. And then there's like, you know, OSS is not really a good draw, so like there's bricks involved too. Poplar is like, I guess it's okay. Drawing Poplar is not the worst, but again, it doesn't really help you if you go Poplar and they just remove the Poplar, and then like such as bounce without this sending into the graveyard, such as like banishing the Poplar or like bouncing it back to hand, you suddenly don't have anything you can send for the OSS that has Surge. It's like the entire Snake Eyes thing. I don't think it's really as one of the top best variants to play with Yummy. It's something you can do for fun, sure. It might, but like overall, in my opinion, adding Snake Eyes cards makes the Yummy deck worse overall. So like, yeah, that's the discussion on Snake Eyes Yummy. And you know, some before we get to some of the more top tier decks, let's talk about some like others, the other decks that were in the selection pack besides Yummy, because you know they're shocker. There were other cards in the selection pack too, and one of them is Megalith. So Megalith, I really like these Megalith cards. These Megalith cards read really good. These new Megalith cards. So first off, the new Megalith ritual monster that you see pictured here, Natra Plura, or like however the hell you pronounce it. It's a branded lost, so you can reveal it, and then your opponent can't respond to your Megalith ritual monster's effects. So that's always nice, making your monsters unrespondable. And then also, it's an Omni-Negate on the end board, which is something that the Megalith end board usually didn't have. Like Megalith with Bayfor could like pop a lot of cards and stuff, but it didn't have a negate, and now it does. And the other new Megalith card, the continuous spell card, is just it's like a better version of Blue Eyes Wishes. Like all our inner type searchers now, the power creep is that you have to search 2 cards, and like Stasis, or like what's the name of that card? Anastasis, or however you pronounce it. You discard a card and add 2 Megalith monsters. But it's not just that, because it's a continuous spell. So also when you ritual summon a monster, you get to either draw 2, discard 1, or you can tribute your opponent's monster. So it is both a add 2 plus a draw 2 plus an interruption on your opponent's turn, all in a single goddamn card. And all you have to do to you know trigger it is the very difficult process of ritual summoning a Megalith monster in a Megalith deck. So yeah, these cards are low-key kind of cracked. And what's even more cracked is the synergy with Mitsurugi monsters. And this is what blew my mind, is because Megalith unformed, basically it ritual summons a Megalith monster from the deck by tributing monsters that are twice the level of the monster you want to ritual summon. So if we do the math here, if you want to ritual summon a level 4 Megalith monster from deck, you have to tribute a level 8 levels worth of monsters. What is a level 8 monster you can think of that you want to tribute in with Mitsurugi cards? How about every damn Mitsurugi ritual? So you can tribute a Mitsurugi ritual to basically summon a Megalith ritual from deck, and then the Mitsurugi ritual that you tributed will trigger the search and summon itself back, and then you can just go, like, you're literally going infinite from there. Like, that is everything in the world. And then also there's like Miracle Raven to search more Megalith monsters. Like you can like end on disgusting end wars and all of that stuff. Like there's synergy with Mitsurugi cards, it's everything. It's and everything else. It's like Loki is kind of extremely powerful. But the problem with Megalith is that, you know, Megalith is not a 1-card combo deck in 2026, which is, unfortunately, that is like a death sentence, because if you are a deck that requires multi-card combos, like we're talking 2.5 card plus combos, then inevitably you end up with 2 issues. One is that you don't have much space for non-engine, and like the Megalith the engine, especially if you combine Megalith engines with the Mitsurugi engine, that is so much space dedicated to ritual monsters and so much space dedicated to engine that you barely have room for any hand traps going second. And like that's, you know, obviously the issue. And then obviously when going second and you're playing a multi-card combo deck, and you're like, it's hard because your opponent can just remove parts of like half of your combo. And like Anastasis, for how cracked it is, it's also a continuous spell, so it's also more vulnerable. So it's like, yeah, it's not a perfect deck. Like it's like a ritual pile deck that ends up being a more along the lines of like a combo slop deck. But yeah, because of that, I kind of want to put it in tier 3, but it obviously it's gonna have issues in this current format because you know, also if you run less non-engine and if you get hit by a turn-ending hand trap such as Maxi or Droll, then it's a bit rough because you probably don't have any hand traps to defend yourself. So when you have to inevitably pass your turn, you end up with like no non-engine on top of like your minimal end board that you had to end on because you got hit by a very impactful hand trap. And like either that or you play into it, and like I don't recommend playing into Maxi or Full Loss with Megalith either. So yeah, it's not perfect, but the cards read very well. So tentatively, I'll put it here. It's probably gonna end up on the lower end of tier 3, but you know, better than Megalith was before, which was literally not on its tier whatsoever. And then we have DDD. So DDD. If you played the Legend of Mythology, you know what DDD does by now, and or you should have a good idea. And that is just spam combo. And DDD has changed as a combo deck from like way back when, like 2 years ago, before it got all this support. So it has turned from a multi-card combo deck, like a 2 to 2.5 card 3 card combo deck, into what is essentially just like a 1 and 1.5 card combo deck. Like DDD has been converted into a modern combo deck. This is a deck that runs tons of hand traps now and has tons of room for non-engine. I've seen DDD decks lists with 15 plus hand traps and called by and cross out. And it's kind of like an abomination to DDD that it's turned from a super massive like non-linear combo deck into a deck that has 1 card 1.5 card combos that are quite honestly way more linear than most DDD combos have been in the past. And it ends on a very strong end board that also has floodgates on it as well. Yeah, the problem with DDD is that it's, despite all the hand traps, it's still kind of mid going second because you are relying on a lot of continuous cards to remain face up on the field in order to play going second. And let me tell you, continuous cards do not interact very well into your opponent's removal, especially when they don't activate on they don't trigger on activation, like your Dark Contracts. You have to activate your Dark Contract, and then you have to activate its effect when it's on the field. So in that window between you activating it and activating its actual effect, they can do any quick effect they want to interact with it. Like that's really hard to deal with. Also, this deck is one of the weakest decks in the Full Loss I've ever seen in my life. Like usually with decks, you know, most decks are bad into Max E, and then there are some decks that are at least more competent into Full Loss compared to Max E. Like you can give significantly less draws to end on like the same board with Full Loss compared to Max E. That's not really the case with DDD because the new support they got, one is the Dark Contracts is a Dark Contract that special summons from deck. So you know that's kind of bit that's kind of terrible into Full Loss. And then the DDD Zero Queen, what is this card's name? The fucking DDD Zero Doom Queen Machinex, the new pendulum monster. It plays its consistency. It places a DDD and then a DDD or like a Dark Contract card, and then when it gets popped later on, it can special summon itself from the extra deck as its free extender, and it even pops a card. But the problem is that when the Machinex special summons itself from the extra deck, even though it was special summoned face up from the extra deck, that still counts as special summoning from the extra deck. So that still gives your opponent another draw off Full Loss. Like that's like their two main combo enablers, like post support, both playing terribly into Full Loss. And like, yeah, in the Legend of Mythology, you would just get Full Loss playing DDD or the DDD owner, and then you would be like, well, fuck me, I'm gonna give my opponent 2 draws before I even make the Link 2 Gilgamesh. Like this is like this is some ass right here. So and that is unfortunate. Even though Maxi going to 1, you know, should help, but like being so bad into Full Loss is definitely like a thing, because a lot of combo decks, even though they're bad into Maxi, they at least have more competent plays into Full Loss. Like even Yummy has very decent plays into Full Loss for like just 1 or 2 draws. I feel like most of the time DDD does not really have a good game plan even Full Loss. So, and coupled with being bad going second, like I'll put it tentatively here for now. Very, very strong end board, very good in the Legend Mythology. I will give it that though. And now the other top deck of the format. So like, I mean, if you've played Master Duel at all, it's no surprise that the 2 most played decks in the game right now are just either a variant of Yummy or a variant of Draco Tail. And it's up for debate it's actually up for debate which one is actually you think is actually better. Like there are arguments for both, whether Yummy is the top deck in Master Duel or Draco Tail is the top deck in Master Duel. So there's 4 Draco Tail variants here. These are like the 4 main variants, and I'll put them here. So like, and then we'll talk about them individually. Even though most Draco Tail decks variants, honestly, they play 80% the same, 80 to 90% the same. They're just playing like a straight up Draco Tail with like a different variant of a Link 2 that you go into. Like whether like honestly, the difference between pure branded and Fiendsmith Draco Tail is basically like the difference between making seals, making Verte, or making Closed Moon of the Heaven, and then going from there. Like that's like as far as most of the differences go. And I'm putting this here right beside Yummy. Know that this order between Yummy and Draco Tail could be swapped out depending on like however you feel and what arguments you feel. Like you can definitely argue Draco Tail is better than Yummy, and you can definitely argue that Yummy is better than Draco Tail. So it can go either way. But yeah, so one of the things about Draco Tail is that Draco Tail is probably one of the decks that has the best Yummy matchup. Specifically non-Mitsurugi variants. Mitsurugi Yummy, it's like no deck has a good matchup in the Mitsurugi Yummy going second, like just straight up, like that's just not a thing. So like this is always going to be at worst a 50-50 deck, but against most other variants of Yummy, Draco Tail actually has an advantage, and that's why you see an uptick in Draco Tail. Because like combined with, you know, the good matchup versus Yummy, Draco Tail's bad matchups have gotten less popular. Specifically, you know, Malice was possibly its worst matchup in the entire game, and Malice got hit significantly on the ban list to a point where, and not that Malice is dead, we will definitely get to that discussion later, but Malice definitely sees less play now than it did before when it was literally the most played deck in the December Duelist Cup. So that's a positive for Draco Tail. Rizio, I mean, if you saw the ban list, you know, we will also get to Rizio. So yeah, its worst 2 matchups, Draco Tail, have you know, been hit significantly by Banlist, and their popularity and play rate has dropped significantly. And meanwhile, the newest deck, the most popular new deck, Draco Tail has good matchup against, and 5 mana is like one of the best hand traps you can use against Yummy, because Yummy, for the most part, it's very hard to hand trap Yummy when you go second. Like it's pretty much almost impossible. Like it's either resolve a maxi or full loss or bust, and you are going to be busting versus Yummy a lot. Yeah. And but 5 mana is one of the few hand traps that actually can be impactful versus Yummy, because not Mitsurugi as much, but you know, again, Yummy is known to be somewhat vulnerable to monster removal, and technically 5 mana acts as monster removal because you can make an Arthalion to bounce the Yummy monster back to their hand before they link into the Link 1 and then continue playing from there. So if they lead with any Yummy that's not Cupsy Yummy, 5 mana can literally just end their turn right there, because then if they don't hard up on Marshmallow, they can't special summon a Yummy monster. They don't control Link 1. They couldn't make the Link 1 to search the field spell. They don't have that extension. So yeah, it's actually can be a very impactful hand trap. And even if you have like a Urgula, for example, or Pan, you can even wait for them to, you know, place the field spell, and then you can both bounce their monster and pop the field spell, or like pop their monster and then you know, play like a Mysterion Dragon, which then Mysterion Dragon can check the Marshmallow. Like you have lots of ways 5 mana can mess with Yummy turn 0, and then like when you go first as Draco Tail, a lot of Yummy decks, it's hard to play into the Draco Tail interruptions, because Yummy actually does care about the Draco Tail traps. Like literally, if you normal summon a monster and it gets bounced by Horn, that's potentially like turn ending right there. You know, Sting can remove whatever summons back from the field spells. So like, you know, it checks the field spell, and then, you know, Flame is more so to cover the non-Yummy cards, such as Mitsurugi cards and Solfachord cards, such as Happiness if your opponent's played them. But yeah, Flame on Happiness is like quite devastating as well, because that's their best card in their deck. And yeah, Draco Tail overall, the meta has shifted to a point where Draco Tail has probably maybe the best matchup spread now, or like among the best, because its worst matchups are seeing lower and lower play, and it has a decent matchup against most other decks. So yeah, in order to like comparing the Draco Tail variants between pure, branded, Fiendsmith, and Magistus, so I think clearly Magistus is like the worst of the Draco Tail variants, even though it's still like it's not that big of a difference between Magistus and Draco Tail and pure Draco Tail. Like it's literally a 5-card difference. And if you don't even draw Spenta, like you don't even really even need to use the Magician's engine that often. It just plays like pure if you don't draw the Magician's engine at worst. So it's like not a big difference, these different variants, but yeah, the Magician's engine, it also has like a slightly better matchup into like the mirror match, because you have more monsters that you can summon that don't get that can like play through your opponent's Draco Tail trap cards, such as, you know, Spenta into Alistair, for example, that shows some defense, and then like, you know, that you don't activate a spell there, you don't have an attack position monster, you obviously sting, like they can sting your Spenta if they want for like very little value, and then you have like cards that can bait out their back row, such as the Magician's Exceeds, and then you have the highest ceilings. Magician still has the highest ceiling out of all the Magician's variants, so, or out of all the Draco Tail variants. So like, you do, if the end board is like too weak for you, then, you know, you can end on like a Magician's end board with negates and floodgates and like more interruptions and so on. But overall, the non-Magician's variants have just been more consistent, and like Pure runs the least amount of bricks. Branded runs 1 brick in Fallen of Albaz, but in turn, you know, it has more access to the Draco Tail engine, because Branded Fusion is a Draco Tail starter, and any 2 monsters in Diverte also gets you more Draco Tail engine. And then Fiendsmith makes Caesar. So Caesar, number 1 Caesar, again, best generic end board piece in the game right now. So any deck that can play Fiendsmith should probably consider it, because like that's how good Caesar is by itself. And then it has additional synergy with the Draco Tail cards, because I've seen this build floating around for a bit now, but Fiendsmith Sequence is a rank 2, or rank 2. It's a link 2 monster, so you can make a Sprite Elf with a Sequence. And then what monster in Draco Tail is a level 2? That's right, it's Phyrexial. So you can make a Sprite Elf, revive Phyrexial. Phyrexial then will revive the Malulu from your graveyard, and then you can end on like, on top of your normal Draco Tail end board of like the traps and stuff, you also have a Caesar, and then you have a Elf plus a Malulu as an additional fusion summon. Plus, you know, like the 5-minute hand. So like that is actually a pretty nice way to add interruptions to the Draco Tail end board as well, without really playing that many bricks. Like it plays pretty much the same amount of bricks as the Brand engine. So yeah. And also another thing, why Draco Tail is like, you know, better now is because Red Reboot has seen considerably less play. I won't say that Red Reboot is dead, because I've definitely been hit by the random Red Reboot still this month. But that's it though, because Red Reboot now, it feels random to get hit by Red Reboot now. You're not getting hit by Red Reboot consistently like 20% of the time. Like if every deck was playing 2 copies of Red Reboot, you're just gonna get hit by Red Reboot at least once every 5 duels, or once every 4 to 5 duels, which feels like, and then you're definitely not getting hit by Red Reboot nearly that often anymore. So that is another trend. And obviously Retaliancy, like, I mean, if people are dropping Red Reboot because of Yummy, and like because there's less Draco Tail, even though like there isn't really less Draco Tail, it's just that the other decks Red Reboot is just so ass against. Like, you never want, if you go Red Reboot, if you have a Red Reboot in your hand, your opponent like fucking activates Habakiri, you want to kind of throw up in your mouth a little bit. But yeah, Retaliancy also sees even less play. So like the 2 most impactful quote unquote non-engine against Draco Tail, the 2 blowouts, don't see as much play anymore. So yeah, all better trends tend towards benefiting Draco Tail. That's why Draco Tail is arguably at minimum tier 1 deck, minimum bottom 2. It's a top 2 deck minimum, and some would argue that it's not even 2. So yeah, and then another deck that used to be high tier, but with the announcement of the ban list, is no longer, in my opinion, a top tier deck anymore, is the Rizio variants, Onomat Rizio and Mitsurugi Rizio. So before the cross ban, I would have put Rizio variants in tier 1, because Rizio variants, again, they have an amazing matchup versus Draco Tail, which is probably, depending on like what rating or like where you're playing at, might be even the most represented deck, and it's one of the strongest decks going first. And yeah, all of that stuff. But now with Crossband, this Cross is a significant hit, because it makes, you know, Cross is like honestly the best thing on the Rizio end board. It's hand trap protection, it's recycling and draw, and it's also an interruption. So like it does like 3 things at once, and it's impossible to stop your opponent from getting to cross because of Star Rise. So like it literally, it's the reason why when you go second against Rizio, it feels literally impossible to hand trap them. Even if you maxi Fua or droll them, you're still probably gonna lose because maxi and Fua they can just play into a Fua and end on a board with more interruptions than you have cards in hand. If you get maxied, if they're playing heavy slump, well, your entire hand's gonna go away, and because cross exists, you can't Ash the heavy slump, so that's nice. You gotta draw Ash double red reboot, when like that's assuming you're even still playing red reboot to like not lose the heavy slump when you max Rise. Like all that shit is a lot less reliable now without cross. Now, that's not to say Rizio loses to Nibiru. Now, it definitely does not lose to Nibiru still. You can still play Rizio, in fact. And you can still end on a board that has almost the same amount of interruptions as you did before. You're just, obviously, you're missing out on the cross, which is like kind of the biggest one, but you can still end on like Detonator, you can still end on automatic stuff, you can still end on Mitsurugi stuff, and you can still play around Nibiru. Like these decks have several ways to play around Nibiru. For example, like Automat Rizio, it's a deck that just spams rank 4s. So literally, instead of placing cross, you can just make a Rafflesia with Gravedigger's Trapple instead, and that's basically your pseudo Rizio cross. That's your hand trap protection right there. And if it goes to your opponent's turn, then Rafflesia can also send Plasma Hole as a powerful interruption. So like it's not that bad. Like you still have a punch of lines into that beat Nib with Rizio Automat, and like you are missing the recycling from cross, but again, there's another rank 4 that recycles monsters from a graveyard. It's called Gusto Emerald. So like you technically have all the tools available to reproduce what cross provides in terms of hand trap protection and recycling and card draw, but you can't do it all in one card. You have to separate it, and because of that, it also makes things like the turn skip with Ptolemaios a lot harder to do when you have to spend a bunch more Exceeds materials on other stuff, besides making a 7 material Ptolemaios. So yeah, overall it makes the deck fair, but it doesn't kill the deck. Like I've seen people go 2 ways on the cross. A hit one way is saying that this card literally does nothing because the Rizio, the rank 4 toolbox is so expensive. Rizio can just do all the things that cross does without cross, which is like, okay, like relax a little bit on that. Like obviously a cross hit is a significant hit. The fact that you have to do other stuff now and not just herp or make a dual drive, a special star, get everything, and then continue from doing that, like that's a big thing. And then the other opinion is the exact opposite, where I've seen people say crossband kills Rizio. This deck is unplayable right now, and I'm like, dude, have you seen the rank 4 toolbox? It's like no, the deck is just turns from one of the dumbest, most toxic decks in the game into a slightly less toxic, but still really kind of honestly dumb deck that's still really hard to hand trap. And yeah, and then in terms of the Mitsurugi Rizio, so Mitsurugi Rizio is like even better into Nibiru because you have like multiple ways to like insulate against Nibiru. Number one is just straight up you're playing Mitsurugi cards. So if you just leave a Murakumo on the field and you're playing Nibiru's, worst case scenario, okay, nice. You tributed my Murakumo with your Nibiru. Okay, I can summon it back and blow up your Nibiru, and then you can go from there. Or you can make a rank 8 such as Photon Lord, because instead of having excess rank 4 materials like Automat Rizio does, you instead have level 8s, multiple level 8s on the field that you can use to make a Photon Lord, which also protects you from the Nibiru. And then again, like Gusto Emerald is available for recycling, so you still have all of that. Like you still on an end board that is pretty much still one among the strongest in the game. It's just not like super dumb on both players' turns, and like it's not like there's no cross there, so it's easier to interact with. So it's like it's more fair in the sense. Like if you wanted to make Rizio deck still playable but actually more fair, like banning cross is one of the ways, because like the other ways to hit Rizio would be completely killing the deck, such as hitting the decks to the point where it's so inconsistent that it's not worth playing. But then when you randomly draw the starters and then it functions just like normal. Like that's how they approach the Malice hits, and let me tell you, like the way they hit Malice, that did not work out so well for most of Malice's lifespan. So this is a different approach to hitting a deck, just by hitting the ceiling and hitting like the power level, but not hitting any more of the consistency, so that you can still play the deck, and it's just guaranteed that you're gonna be able to play more often, but also like your ceiling is way lower. So I do like the crossban. I would like to see how the crossban affects Rizio, but ultimately I feel like we're not going to get to see that because Rizio is probably going to be phased out, not because it's bad, but just because it's not going to be popular. Like, if it were me, like Rizio, I would probably put the best Rizio variants somewhere in tier 2 and not near the top of tier 2. So if Rizio basically dropped from a tier 1 deck into like a low tier 2 deck, and then with the new pack coming out with new cards, like what is really the incentive to play Rizio at that point, right? So yeah, unfortunately we're probably never gonna find out if the Rizio crossban was actually an actual good hit to Rizio, because this deck's just not going to be played. It's like we'll just never know. Like nobody's going to care enough to play Rizio to find out, besides like the few people. But yeah. Next card, balance affected deck. So Snake Eyes, Oak is back, and I'm honestly surprised they brought back Oak this quickly, because frankly, like I guess it wasn't that quickly. Oak was banned like 7 months ago. Jesus Christ, dog. What is time? Like, I felt like Oak was just banned yesterday, but in fact it was almost like, it was damn near almost like it was 7 months ago. Like, Jesus Christ, that is like not a, that's like 7 balance ago. That's actually quite a long time. Wow. But yeah, Oak basically makes it so that Snake Eyes is very resilient to hand traps. And before, like when Oak was banned, like Snake Eyes had a problem of if you could just wait, if you just hand trap the Snake Eyes Ash, then you can't really get access to your Snake Eyes engine, because like you only have one summon from deck to get the Flambird, and if you just Ash the summon to get Flambird from Ash, then like there's no Oak, like there's no second way to get the Flambird. You just straight up, you guys don't have Snake Eyes engine. That's kind of awkward. Oak fixes that. Like, this is the main deck is honestly pretty much the same as it was when this deck was like the best deck for like the Duelist Cup a year ago, or like the World's qualifiers last year. The only thing is that it's missing Appaloosa, but I don't think missing Appaloosa is as big of it is the biggest deal for Snake Eyes, especially these variants where we have Snake Eyes and Snake Eyes Fire King. But for like Snake Eyes Millennium Fiendsmith, which was the best way to play Snake Eyes, that deck could make rank 8s very easily between Doom Dragon plus the Millennium Engine plus Diabellstar, the level 8 Snake Eyes Diabellstar, and then you can just make a Photon Lord. And then Photon Lord provides you a similar, basically it provides you the similar protection that Appaloosa does, which is, it makes you play through hand traps like they're nothing. And then it's like an Endboard piece as well, which is obviously not as good as Appaloosa, but like the problem with Snake Eyes was never that its Endboard was too weak. Okay, like if you got to play in the Snake Eyes Endboard, you have all that layer interruption between Desiree, IP, and I guess now Photon Lord, and plus whatever hand traps you drew, plus the fact that you can also have the Fiendsmith interruptions. Like on top of that, you can also maybe have a Caesar, or if you play the Rextraman and like the Paradise stuff, you have additional stuff like that. And like Caesar is already like one of the best Endward pieces as we've discussed so far. So yeah, this deck still should be good enough. I actually maybe I'm willing to test Fiendsmith Snake Eyes for a bit. Like it's hard to really put it high tier because again, this deck has basically not been played for 7 months. So like we don't know how, like the meta is definitely stronger than it was at the point when Snake Eyes got hit last time. But yeah, tentatively maybe it's like we can put it up here like higher tiers, because Oak definitely helps. Like it's definitely huge. Like the fact that this deck is almost basically as strong as it was when it was the best deck in the last Worlds qualifiers should not be ignored. But yeah, and then Fire King, and specifically like Fire King Snake Eyes, because obviously Fire King Snake Eyes is the Fire King variant that actually cares about Oak. It's not as big of a deal. Like Oak was massive for like Fiendsmith Snake Eyes builds and like more purish Snake Eyes builds, but for Fire King Snake Eyes, it did not rely on Oak nearly as much as like pure Snake Eyes variants, because Oak, this deck already had another level 1 fire monster that it can use, which was Ponix. Yeah, like I played like I played multiple Duelist Cups with Snake Eyes Fire King without actually Oak in my deck, which was, in hindsight, that was completely wrong. Like that was like, I nearly topped one of them, and if I was playing Oak, I probably would have topped one of them instead of I excluded Oak from my deck because I thought, you know, Oak was like a brick. It's not a starter by itself. So like, you know, dumbass me, I didn't play Oak. But it's obviously it's incorrect. Playing Oak and Fire King Snake Eyes is better. But the point is that I almost topped the Duelist Cup without playing Oak and Fire King Snake Eyes. So like clearly like that is not, Oak is nearly not as important to Fire King Snake Eyes as it is to like actual like Snake Eyes without the Fire King cards. But yeah, I mean Oak definitely it helps, but like it's not game changing. I will say it adds better follow up. It gives you a better hit on zombie vampire. It's like yeah, but like a lot of your combo lines, you don't even have to go through Oak because again, you can just go straight to Ponix and then it's like mostly the same. So it's not really well, not putting it up there. I'm gonna put Snake Eyes Fire King as like the as below the other Snake Eyes variants because like it didn't benefit as much from the Oak unban as Snake Eyes as other Snake Eyes variants, but yeah. What the hell is going on with my cursor right here? Hold up. Okay, that was hella weird. Next we have Ubel. So Ubel is the better Mikanko that I was referring to because you know Ubel's gimmick of attacking into a bunch of your opponent's monsters with Nightmare Pain. It's in a better shell of a deck because Ubel can actually win going first using that method because Ubel is still one of the. You go second versus Ubel and you don't open Maxi or Charmy, you're probably gonna lose that game because Ubel is gonna put up more interruptions than you have cards in hand, and there's not really a good way to stop their deck unless they with hand traps, unless they brick, in which case it's like I mean they don't have any hits anymore. Like the Ubel deck is entirely unhit now, so it's very unlikely that Ubel is gonna brick with the Fiendsmith engine plus triple throne plus dark bending beast plus 3 fan of Ubel now, so that they can just shit out fan of Ubel whenever they want with no hesitation at all because like you got 3 of them things. Yeah, but here's the thing, for the entire existence of Ubel, I mean for Ubel's almost entire existence, it has just been unfortunately it's been a worse version of a Snake Eyes deck. Like straight up it was like Ubel and then Snake Eyes Fire King, and then it was like okay, Snake Eyes Fire King kind of outperformed it over a longer period of time, and then when the Fiendsmith engine came, you had Ubel Fiendsmith, but that was just the reverse version of Snake Eyes Fiendsmith. And right now at this point is very funny because the same time that Ubel got 3 fan back, it was like the same balance that Snake Eyes got Oak back. So once again we're in the point where Ubel is like feels like it's just an inferior version of Snake Eyes because like Ubel has a lot of problems, such as, you know, the fact that it has to run so many bricks in its deck in comparison is like not optimal. It's like worse going second. Not that like Snake Eyes or Snake Eyes Fire King even have really engines capable of going second at this moment because, you know, going second is quite difficult except into like I say certain Draco Tail boards. But I mean Ubel, I think Ubel is going to really struggle playing the Draco Tail boards when their normal summon gets bounced by a Horn. They don't have very good ways to play around the traps, and they are affected a lot more by say cards like Mysterion. So it's like yeah, I can't really put Ubel much higher than Rogue because like frankly Ubel, fan of Ubel going from 2 to 3, it does not really change the deck that much at all. Okay, like it changes pretty much none of the combo lines. You never needed the 3rd fan of Ubel until turn 3, in which case if you went first and used like multiple fan of Ubel's turn 1 and then it got to turn 3 and you didn't die, you'd probably won already. So like it wasn't that big of deal. Like there's not really many prolonged grind games you get in this format, especially with playing a deck like Ubel. So like it didn't really gain much, and like I would have, this is like the same spot I would put Ubel before with just 2 fandom. Like the 3rd fan in this context of this format is not that big of a deal. So yeah, what's maybe slightly a bigger of a deal is the 3rd Maiden of White. So now Blue Eyes is quote unquote full power now. There's not a single hit to the Blue Eyes engine. And this is just assuming the current Blue Eyes cards. Okay, I know some people are coping that there's a possibility we might get the Frame Break cards for the anniversary next month, and then those Frame Break cards include the new Deep Eyes White Dragon that like searches a level 1 tuner and special summons a Blue Eyes. Like obviously if we get that, like this will change everything about Blue Eyes, but like I'm not gonna assume we're getting that because like there's no way to know if we're getting that. Okay, like there's no point in assuming that. Like if we get that next month from the anniversary, we will literally be getting that before the OCG does. Like it's something that could happen. It's not a 0% chance that could happen, but like that is so much cope right now, and like I would not hold my breath that we're getting those cards in the anniversary, because like you just can't. But like, you know, if we do, I'll update this tier list again. But like for now, we're just dealing with the current Blue Eyes cards in this game with 3 mated. So yeah. The thing about Blue Eyes is that the Blue Eyes engine Loki, it's like just really bad. Like the best part about Blue Eyes is that half its deck is not its engine cards. Because I gotta say, Blue Eyes has like such a abysmal matchup into Draco Tail. It's unbelievable between Mysterion Dragon, Flame, Horn, Sting, Sanctifier. Like literally, I've not seen a deck that is worse into a Draco Tail end board than Blue Eyes. Like it's just gross. Wishes is never going to resolve because of Flame. Like you got fucking Sting getting rid of Maidens and Blue Eyes and Wishes from the graveyard, so that you can't even make a Tyrant Dragon. You got fucking Horn bouncing your normal summons so that you can't link it off to a Link 1. You got fucking 5 mana into Secretariat Dragon. You got hell, even Mysterion Dragon. Like even if they go Mysterion Dragon, change it to your Link 1, now your Blue Eyes gets banished. Like what like this, it's honestly so bad. The only reason like I think Blue Eyes is like acceptable, to be honest, is the fact that it plays a lot of non-engine. I think pretty much in terms of how much space there is for non-engine, in terms of going first decks, it's pretty much just pure Yummy, and then there's like Blue Eyes that's next. So like Blue Eyes runs a shit ton of hand traps, and like hand traps are a way to minimize the Draco Tail engine, especially if you play cards like Purge, since Purge can be used on both players' turns. It can be used to stop them from possibly searching with K2. It stops K2. It stops the Draco Tail's trap cards. You know, it's very versatile, and you can recycle it with, provided your opponent doesn't have Sting for your wishes, you can constantly recycle cards like Purge and Imperm to use again and again against Draco Tail, and those cards are actually impactful against Draco Tail. Like Purge and Imperm aren't too impactful by themselves versus like the super combo decks like Yummy, but against Draco Tail they can actually do something, especially if you recycle them and accumulate them over time, you know, over a long number of turns. If you can get to a grind game, like Blue Eyes might be one of the few decks that could possibly outgrind Draco Tail because of cards like Tyrant Dragon, for example. And yeah, like it's not going to be able to play into any boards, but most decks aren't going to be able to play into boards this format. And if you can't play into boards, I would rather be the deck that plays like 18 hand traps as opposed to the deck that plays like 12 or less hand traps. So I still like Blue Eyes is still a viable thing, and there's like in paper, like the matchup is kind of, the meta is kind of bad. Although it did get improved by Rizio and Malice seeing less play. Although like let's be honest, which deck hasn't gotten better from less Rizio or Malice? Like there wasn't really a deck out there that I was like, oh boy, I'm so glad I get to play against Rizio and Malice, right? Like that deck just didn't exist. So like these decks dropping in power basically helped everything. So like I guess that's not really as much of a benefit to Blue Eyes comparatively, but yeah, I'll put it here. It's like the opposite of Megalith is a heavy engine deck with not much non-engine that has a very high ceiling, but also maybe struggles going second because of the lack of non-engine. And Blue Eyes has like a very mid to very mediocre engine, but it has tons of non-engine to, you know, help mitigate it. So yeah. Next we have Malice, and now here's the thing. Okay, last time I did a tier list, I put Malice at the top of tier 2. And literally not even a day later, I regretted it. I realized I was wrong, and Malice was a tier 1 deck. Not only a tier 1 deck, it was arguably the best deck in the format after Red Resin got banned. And yeah, so I'm going to open myself up to being wrong again by putting Malice at the top of tier 2 now. And who knows, it might very well sneak up a bit, because Malice, no deck wants to play against Malice. Like, no deck has like a good Malice matchup. Malice just has a good matchup against most things, especially the most played, one of the top 1 or top 2 most played deck, Draco Tail. Malice was like almost, Malice and Rizio was the entire reason why Draco Tail was not the best deck last format. So yeah, the Malice is a bit worse because the Banlist hits, I will say that. In terms of the format, the Malice is still has one of the best matchup spreads in the game, in the format. It's just the deck itself got worse because Rabbit going from 3 to 1 is actually not as big of a deal as a Allure going from 3 to 1. So Rabbit was already the worst start. White Rabbit was already the worst start in the deck. Like it lost to any hand trap if that was your only starter anyways. And like honestly, the biggest part about White Rabbit was that it let you it made your Allures have more targets to banish. Like that was the best benefit of playing multiple Rabbits, because like honestly sometimes Rabbit would clog your hand with multiple normal summons, because like if you can't get it out of your hand with like a Hare or like a Lure or Chessy Cat, then it's not an extender like most of your other cards, so it's like kind of weird there. Allure being hit is like honestly the biggest deal, because Allure was one of the strongest cards in the entire game last format. Like it was insane. Also like the fact that this deck also plays Dominus Impulse, which like we got so far, and like there's been like only 2 decks so far that we covered that can actually play Dominus Impulse, and that is Snake Eyes Fire Kings, and that is Malice. And I guess I should have mentioned that as a benefit for Snake Eyes Fire Kings as well. But yeah, Dominus Impulse plus Allure plus the fact that sometimes you played Red Reboot, it made playing to Draco Tail, like it made the Draco Tail matchup like so in your favor even when you go second, because when you have Allure doesn't just draw into engine pieces. It also draws into cards like, because Dominus Impulse can be used as a board breaker. Lots of interruptions these days require you to special summon, whether it's yummy synchro monsters or like Mitsurugi cards such as Murakumo, or everybody knows 5 mana and like Malulu from Draco Tail, right? So legitimately Dominus Impulse was not only a hand trap, it was a board breaker. And that was like one of the most insane things about Allure, because when you're playing Allure and you just draw into hand traps, it's not very useful to you, because most hand traps aren't very good into an established board already. Dominus Impulse is not the case, and the fact that Malice can run both Dominus Impulse and Allure means that you can have an Allure that digs deeper into your deck, and it can draw you into usable non-engine deck to be used as a pseudo board breaker, on top of turning your engine pieces into extenders by banishing your Malice names. Like that is crazy, like how one Allure can get you an extender plus a board breaker to play into a board. Like that's crazy. And that's not even talking about being able to draw into Red Reboot. That's not even talking about Chessy Cat being able to dig into more cards, and White Binder's draw being able to dig into more cards. Like it was crazy. You get going and like you can dig into your deck, and like it was absolutely nuts. But yeah, with Allure being to 1, that's not going to happen as much anymore. Although low key, like the deck kind of got more consistent, because to replace the Allure, you're probably using Silent Minings and Michus, and Allure, for as good as it is, sometimes you had to prey on the Allure. You had to blind Allure, and every Malice player knows the thrill of having to Allure with 0 dark monsters in hand and hoping you draw into a Malice name in order to start playing. So like sometimes Allure wasn't a starter, and sometimes Allure was like a brick, and sometimes you literally lost the game because of Allure. Whereas if the Allure was a Silent Mining, like Silent Mining doesn't have the ceiling, doesn't have the upside of Allure, but at least Silent Mining, it guarantees you're gonna draw a start, you're gonna get a starter off the Silent Mining, right? So I guess you will technically brick less often, but the power level of your deck dropped quite a bit. But I still low-key, like if we were just talking that Draco Tail context, Malice would still be very good. Like Malice won the fucking latest meta weekly. It still has an excellent Draco Tail matchup. Yummy is more of a 50-50, because this Draco Tail or Malice versus Yummy is more of a really like who goes first kind of matchup, and who resolves Max C, because neither deck is really both decks are very good at playing through hand traps still. I guess Malice less so now, because having to rely on more on like Silent Mining and Michu as opposed to Allure. But I mean, still, like most likely, unless you draw Maxi or Fool Loss, the deck that goes first in the Yummy Malice matchup is gonna put up their end board and it's gonna have a higher chance of winning. So it's really just coin flip dependent. It feels like, but 50-50 versus Yummy. A lot of decks would pray for having a 50-50 matchup versus Yummy like that. So Malice. And Malice didn't get hit on this balance, on this most recent balance. But yeah, 1 Allure, 1 Rabbit. We'll see. Tentatively, I'll put it here, and it's gonna be high in tier 2 as well. But yeah, and also going to next format, it's Malice always has like evergreen potential, because like it just plays on an axis because it banishes cards. No, most decks struggle to deal with the banish mechanic that Malice does, and also Shifter, because there's less Malice around. Shifter becomes better because a lot of people end up dropping Shifter for Malice at the end of last format because it turns out Malice was just the most played deck in the format, so like you didn't want to play Shifter against when the mirror match was the most common deck, but that's not the case now. So now Shifter, comes back in. So yeah. Another deck that really benefits from meta changes is Lunarlight. So Lunarlight, last format, when Malice and Rizio were the top decks, it was a disaster for Lunarlight because Malice and Rizio were like the two decks that could just beat Liger Dancer in engine. So yeah, that was an issue. Obviously with Cyber's Wicked and Light Dragon Agnister, which your one, if that was all they had no engine, non-engine, and you searched in the Nibiru as well, then like you could win. You can still beat Malice and Rizio with like double Liger Dancer plus Nibiru. But like if they hand trapped you at all and you didn't get the Nibiru Surge or you didn't get both Liger Dancers, then it was just pretty much cooked. Like you were probably gonna lose the Malice and Rizio. But Lunarlight had a better matchup against Draco Tail because Draco Tail frankly does not really run outs to Liger Dancer. And to an extent, Yummy is also a similar case to that because most Yummy decks do not really have a clean out the Liger Dancer. Like the Yummy out the Liger Dancer usually involves making a Gorgon of whatever the hell that card's called, Gorgon of Zillaphonia, because then it has enough attack to run over the Liger Dancer. Which there's several ways to not lose to a Gorgon with Lunarlight. One is just blowing up their monsters before they can make a Link 2, and before they can make an IP. I mean. Like, if they make IP and then they make summon another monster, you just blow up their field so that the way the Gorgon is not indestructible. And also, like, you can do this, you can do this this crazy move called summoning Liger Dancer in the extra monster zone. And that way Gorgon cannot easily point to the Liger Dancer. They have to make another Link 2, and then they have to build the Gorgon below the Link 2, and then like at that point it's so much easier to do to like sniff it out and like just break their field before they get that far. So it's still not really easy for Yummy to out this. I mean, and yeah, when the top two most played decks are actually struggling to out Liger Dancer, this deck gets a lot better as opposed to like last round. So like I'm actually playing Lunarlight. Before Lunarlight was a tier 3 deck because the two most played decks were Malice and Rizio, and those were not good matchups. But now the two most played decks are Yummy and Draco Tail, and those are significantly better matchups I almost said Liger Dancer when I mean Lunarlight, but yeah, it's basically Liger Dancer to the deck. Also, going second, it has Heavy Poly, and Heavy Poly is like cracked if you don't have a spell trap negate for it. And yeah, so it actually gives it a decent going second plan, which was not useful against Malice or Rizio because Heavy Poly was not helping you break a Malice or Rizio end board probably because they probably drew a bunch of non-engine like Impulse to stop you. But that's another thing. Impulse is seeing less play now, so. Impulse was one of the best hand traps versus Lunarlight, so yeah. I'm moving Lunarlight from tier 3 to tier 2 now. It is definitely something you have to consider now, unfortunately. So every deck is now gonna, because Lunarlight exists, every deck is gonna need a concrete plan to deal with towers, and because people will have a concrete plan to deal with towers, that leads back to me putting Mikanko down here and why. Huli is not reliable anymore because people are going to have outs to Huli because people are going to have outs to Liger Dancer. Most likely. If not, they might just accept that they're going to take the L from Lunarlight. But as Lunarlight sees more and more play, that might not be a smart strategy. Next, we have Orcus variants. So, yeah, the Orcus variants. The problem with Orcus variants is that Orcus had a terrible terrible Draco Tail matchup. One of the worst Draco Tail matchups in the game, honestly. And it was not that much better versus Malice. So, like, it ended up falling by the wayside a bit last format. And now versus Yummy, like, it's not like Yummy is a good matchup. So, like, it's fallen a little bit. And we have these three variants right here: Pure, Fiendsmith, and Mitsurugi. I think these are pretty much the only variants right now. And Pure, I do not like Pure Orcus whatsoever. Pure Orcus, I'm putting it down to tier 3 because, like, it is just, well, number one, the deck Pure Orcus is bricky because it just doesn't have that many starters. Unless you draw Gear Suit, the deck is actually quite underpowered. Also, Gear Suit by itself is not like it was before. You normal summon Gear Suit, and the only cards that would stop you are Fool and Maxi. There's no other hand trap in the game that would have stopped you. And Baldrake, but Baldrake was significantly less common. Now that's no longer the case because 5 mana outs Gear Suit, and Draco Tail being the most played deck, having a hand trap that run at 3 that auto beats your best starter is not doesn't bode well for you, especially when you don't have other extenders. Like, you really need to have another secondary engine to play with Orcus as additional extension to play through. One, to play through Fimena going first, but two, to even have a semblance of being able to play through boards, because your Orcus engine is really weak going second. So like, you need more extension in order to actually play the game. Like, it's even worse than like Yummy playing into boards, quite honestly. So Fiendsmith and Mitsurugi, and so yeah, Fiendsmith, obviously, like Fiendsmith, I'm like Fiendsmith. Any deck that I can consider playing Fiendsmith should probably consider it, because again, Caesar is cracked, but it also has additional benefits in Orcus, because Fiendsmith also, on top of making Caesar, bridges into Orcus engine because Nightmare Mermaid exists. So yeah, all that stuff. Only downside is that you can't play Dominus Impulse, and Dominus Impulse is still one of the best hand traps in the game. One of the basically the best hand trap you can have versus Draco Tail, because again, it can be used as both a hand trap and a board breaker. And when you're playing the Orcus cards, you really can't afford to play the Fiendsmith card. Like, that's too much confliction. Or you can't, when you play the Fiendsmith card, you can't afford to play Dominus Impulse. Like, there's too much confliction right there. So a sub engine that you can use to play Impulse, but still having a sub engine is Mitsurugi, which yeah, it's basically has like the same benefits as Orcus, or same benefits as Fiendsmith as an additional extension. It does add to the end board. It doesn't have a Caesar, but it does have, Murakumo plus Prayers and potentially Purification if you want to play that as an Alta Maxi, which is another thing, because like low-key, the Mitsurugi cards also give you better line to Maxi and Full Loss, because instead of going full Orcus combo and getting absolutely cooked by those cards, you can just end on like Murakumo Purification like normal Mitsurugi does, and then that's a much better plan to Maxi and Full Loss than whatever the hell Orcus had before. But at the same time, Orcus plays a lot of bricks, Mitsurugi plays a lot of bricks, and Mitsurugi engine is not small at all. So like, you also don't have that much room for hand traps compared to Fiendsmith and pure Orcus. So like, you do get to play the better hand trap in Impulse, but you play less of them, and like, you're gonna have your hand quality is a lot worse, because you're gonna have a lot more hands with like fucking Mirror or Sachi or Kusanagi in hand when you already have fucking Heart Porters and like breaking on multiple Orcus monsters. It just, yeah, it doesn't feel a great solution. Neither of these decks feel like a great solution. I still think Fiendsmith is probably the best, because Mitsurugi Orcus is better when you draw Impulse, because then you're playing a deck that can play Impulse. But when you don't draw Impulse, I would rather have the Fiendsmith engine in my deck as opposed to the Mitsurugi engine. I'm not gonna lie, except for specifically Maxi. So I guess like, you can either say that Orcus, like these two belong next sides to each other over Pure. I don't trust Pure. I don't think Pure is really that playable at all anymore. But yeah, these are two Orcus variants near the bottom of tier 2. Unfortunately, yeah, they used to be tier 1 for a couple months ago, but they've since fallen from then. And then we have the other Mitsurugi deck, the actual pure Mitsurugi decks, and Mitsurugi Fiendsmith, which Mitsurugi Fiendsmith is literally just Mitsurugi Pure, except it plays it makes an Caesar on its end board instead of sometimes searching Nibiru. But yeah, I will say that with pure Mitsurugi is a deck that it felt like in its entire existence, or like not the entire existence, but all of last format, the niche of pure Mitsurugi was that it was a deck that can, one, play Dom's Impulse, two, it has a decent matchup into Draco Tail, because Murakumo is just very good against Draco Tail, even though it is a bit awkward against against a couple of their traps, especially Flame and Sting. But you also did play the Impulse to help with the matchup. You also had the option to even play Shifter, because Shifter Mitsurugi cards can trigger even when they're banished. They just have to be tributed. So Shifter was also a very good call, especially against Draco Tail. The problem with all of those things is that Malice also was all of that. Malice was also a deck that could play Impulse. Malice was also a deck that had a good matchup versus Draco Tail. In fact, it probably had a much better matchup against Draco Tail than Mitsurugi does, because it had basically the best matchup against Draco Tail in the entire game. And Malice also played Shifter too. And eventually, Malice dropped Shifter because Malice was the most played deck. So like, by similar logic, you would have probably dropped Shifter and Mitsurugi as well. So, basically in all respects, playing Mitsurugi was like playing a worse version of Malice for the most part, because when Malice goes first, It has Malice has all the positives that Mitsurugi has, except when Malice goes first, it makes one of the strongest endboards in the game and also draws like 4 cards, whereas Mitsurugi when it goes first, that does not do that. Like for example, if Mitsurugi plays against Malice and Malice does its full turn 1 endboard, Mitsurugi is not going to win that. Mitsurugi is going to lose that game. If Mitsurugi does its full endboard, Malice, I've done this before. I've OTK'd through a full quote-unquote Mitsurugi endboard with Malice with just non-engine. Or, sorry, with just engine and no hand traps. So, yeah, it does feel like, it still feels like a worse Malice. I'm not going to lie. Like, it just, because all of the things about Malice, it still rings true about Malice. It's just slightly worse, but yeah, Mitsurugi, has a better Yummy matchup now, I will say, because specifically pure Yummy, because Murakumo is very good to play into a Yummy board, whereas Malice does struggle a little bit playing into an established Yummy board, because the Yummy board can just book your monsters and like remove your monsters before you get the link them off to a link 1 to actually use your extenders. So that is a benefit, because Mitsurugi cards are better into Yummy cards, provided your opponent does not make a Thunder Dragon Colossus. in that case, then thankfully Thunder Dragon Colossus is not really that common, so you don't have to really worry about that. But like just randomly you can get blown out by that. Also, it's not good into Caesar, but like I mean neither is Malice. Let's be honest here. So, yeah, I will put Mitsurugi. I don't know if it's better than Lunarlight and Rizios or worse, but definitely I'll put it above Orcus. And the thing about Fiendsmith Mitsurugi is that so here's the interesting thing about Fiendsmith Mitsurugi is that Fiendsmith Mitsurugi, technically there are builds of Fiendsmith Mitsurugi that can play Dominus Impulse, because you're not playing a full Fiendsmith engine. You're not using the Fiendsmith engine to bridge into Mitsurugi cards. So you're just playing one Engraver as your one Fiendsmith card. That way you can bridge your Mitsurugi combo into Fiendsmith, and then you can basically just end with a Caesar on top of your end board, and that's it. So in that case, it doesn't conflict with Impulse that much, because I mean you're not really playing main deck bricks you're not playing main deck Fiendsmith cards besides Engraver. So if you do use Impulse, you just don't go into Fiendsmith, and it's not that big of a deal. You just play normal Mitsurugi. And if you don't use Impulse from your hand, then you can have the option of playing bridging into Fiendsmith there, because it's not also conflicting. Like you're not going to draw multiple Engravers, you're not going to draw a Track, you're not going to draw Lurie or Lakimura with Impulse. That's when it's really bad. Like you're only playing one Fiendsmith card that conflicts with Don's Impulse in the main deck. So it's actually yeah, if you're playing that build, I actually like Mitsurugi better than I like the Fiendsmith version better than pure Mitsurugi, because fucking Caesar is fucking cracked out of its mind this format. So like obviously if you play a deck that can play Caesar, why not, right? Even if it conflicts very slightly more. But again, you can build Mitsurugi Fiendsmith in a way that doesn't conflict with Impulse, because you don't really care. Like opening the Fiendsmith cards, the Fiendsmith cards themselves don't bridge into Mitsurugi very well, unless you play a very expansive X deck package, which is probably not worth it. So because you don't care to open with Fiendsmith, you only really want to bridge into it if you can, then yeah, you can just afford playing one Engraver. So yeah. Next is Man. So Man, Odeon. So Odeon is probably the only trap deck in the game that's not complete dog ass going second, because Odeon is a fake trap deck, okay? It looks like it's a deck that plays a lot of trap cards, but half its trap cards are fucking hand traps, okay? Like it plays 9 Dominus traps plus 3 intern. That's 12 trap cards that are just hand traps, okay? That's a fake trap deck, okay? You're playing a mid-range deck with hand traps. You're not playing a trap deck, okay? That's the thing about Odeon. That's like that you gotta get it right. Like it's actually a lot more different from Lab than you would think, because Labyrinth is definitely a trap deck first and foremost, whereas Odeon is a one-card combo, quote-unquote one-card combo. It's one-card combo is normally something Mana with the Mark or Primite cards, and then like setting cards, yes, but the cards that you set could also be activated from hand anyway, so like it wasn't that big of a deal. So yeah, because you're running so many goddamn hand traps in this deck, you actually are way better going second compared to other quote-unquote trap decks. Thing about Odeon is that because it's not a real trap deck, it also feels its end board is also like not that strong, because your end board is hand traps, like it's if you open man, your end board is like 2 negates with like the Apophis cards, or if you open Primite cards, then like you have like 2 negates with Baron plus Drill Beam, which is like cool. You have like a few interactions there, but you're not like, if you don't draw a floodgate with Odeon, the end board actually feels very doable to play into, especially because low-key Odeon is also a trap deck that is kind of bad into Maxi. Like it's not bad. Like obviously it's not terrible, but your opponent does get 2 draws off Maxi. If they just hold it for their turn, then you activate the Apophis trap card, you chain Maxi, and then you get 1 draw, and then later on when you use the Apophis card, it sets, you get another draw. So you get 2 draws off Maxi on your turn, which, again, that's not the end of the world or anything. Like, Maxi is definitely better against other decks, but the fact that you're a trap deck and you gave your opponent a Pot of Greed, you turn your opponent's Maxi into a Pot of Greed that they can use on their turn. It's, like, not ideal. Especially since your end board is not super insane or anything. It's a bunch of hand traps plus, like, a couple interruptions from your engine. It's actually, if you don't draw, like, if you didn't draw a Floodgate, your end board feels very beatable. But that being said, what Floodgate are you going to play this format, though? Because, like, last format, you could just play Soul Drain because people were playing Malice and Draco Tail were the 2 most popular decks, and, Soul Drain definitely good against that. Now, what? You don't really want to play Soul Drain because you flip Soul Drain and your opponent summons Cupsy Yummy, like, you want to, like you are disgusted by yourself. Like, you are sick from that. So I've actually seen a lot of ODM builds just cut Floodgates altogether because, like, what? Like there's no singular good Floodgate that's good to play. Except, like, I guess Skill Train, which is like a one-off. It's like, yeah, I will still put it up here in tier 2, but like it feels, the deck feels low-key. It feels kind of underwhelming because, like, it's a trap, it's quote-unquote trap deck that's not as strong going first as you would like it to be. Like, it doesn't auto win. It also, like, plays into hand traps a little bit with the Maxi and the fact that you can Valor and Ash the man and the field spell and, like, can potentially cut them off, and also, like, Dominus Impulse. But, like, the Dominus Impulse is less of a concern because there's not many decks playing Dominus Impulse right now. But yeah, and then the other most popular trap deck, Labyrinth, which unfortunately, yeah, this is gonna be the first time I think I dropped Labyrinth into Rogue in a long time. Is just, man, it just doesn't feel, going second is so rough. And then, like, the matchups where sometimes you don't even win going first, although admittedly, you do win way more often going first than you do going second, but it's like it's rough. Draco Tail is kind of a hard matchup, even though you have access to Deep Bear. So, like, yes, if you theoretically want to loop Deep Bear against Yummy and Draco Tail, it is a win condition. It's just pray you don't play against Malice, I guess. It's okay going first. It's complete terrible going second. Like, I don't see how you ever win with Labyrinth going second. I'm going to be honest. I guess the upside is that people aren't really playing Red Reboot as much anymore. So, like, you're not going to auto lose. Like, if Red Reboot was still being played, Man would be at the bottom tier 3, and then Rogue, there's no question the Labyrinth would be in Rogue, because, like, when every deck plays 2 auto wins against you, like, that's just not ideal. But yeah, I guess maybe putting Labyrinth in Rogue is a bit harsh, but it's also this deck is low-key kind of weak to hand traps. Like, it's low-key weak to Ash, and it's Impulse. But again, Impulse Malice isn't, like, omnipresent anymore. So, like, it's not like every other deck is playing Impulse, so that's not that as much of a concern. But still, like, yeah, it's. Yeah, also Lightning Storm going from 2 to 3, I guess that doesn't really matter because you don't, the decks that run Lightning Storm, like, you have a good matchup against them anyways. So yeah, unfortunately in Konami's Patriarch world, man is greater than Woodman. And yeah, onto another Woodman is Sky Striker. So Sky Striker, you see, I have like the rest of the quote unquote blind second decks here, and, like, Sky Striker is not really a blind second deck. You can play Striker as a blind second deck. I know some people were saying that, oh yes, Lightning Storm going back to 3, isn't that good for Striker? Well, look, at the end of the day, the best way to play Sky Striker, to play any deck, is to, if you can, go first with it, because you don't want your opponent doing all their shit going first and letting them do that. So, like, because the best version of Sky Striker is still going to be a going first Sky Striker build. The best version of Sky Striker is then not going to be playing 3 Lightning Storm, because like who wants to open that shit going first, right? So yeah, I will say it's Sky Striker has like always like it's never been the best deck. It's never going to be too strong. It's never going to be bad though. Like there's always going to be matchups where Sky Striker is like decent against, such as like Sky Striker is actually pretty okay against Draco Tail, to be honest, since you just have like a ton of spells and like ward breakers, and like you have ways to dodge flame, like you between linkage and like droplets. If you play that, like flame is actually gonna not resolve more often than it does resolve against you, and then like besides that, like you know, you don't really care about the other traps that much, and like yeah, and the fusions, like the fusions can interact with the activating engaged multiple times in a row. So yeah, and then against Yummy, like that's at the end of the day, you know, a Sky Striker has a lot of room for tech options and non-engine, so you can play quite a bit of hand traps versus Yummy. I will say Droll is kind of annoying, and Yummy plays Droll because it's when the deck has room for that many hand traps, and it can self-roll itself, so that's kind of rough. So again, the Droll is way worse going second than Droll is way harder to play into going second than it is going first. So again, that's another reason why you want to play going first when you can, because like the hand traps on top of boards are like impossible to play through, whereas the hand traps by themselves, you know, it's not like Sky Striker ends on too much. Like it's still kind of scary to go first with Sky Striker, because you're ending on like, depending on your hand, and if you don't get many draws off engage, you might only end on like 2-ish interruptions, or maybe 3 interruptions, which a lot of decks will just OTK you through that. So like, you know, it's obviously the Striker's not the perfect deck. Like just because you choose to go first doesn't mean you're the best deck at going first. That's why Striker is all the way down here compared to these decks up here. But you know, it's like Striker is a deck that can go first and second. It has about as good as capability going second as it does going first. It's because the Sky Striker engine is just naturally good as going second. So there is that. Like it's here. Like you can build Sky Striker in a way that you can try to play tech cards to beat any of these any of the top decks here. You know, you even have ways to deal with Liger Dancer, such as with Black Goat Laughs and you know, Thrust into potentially Herald of the Abyss as well. Also does deal with the Liger Dancer, provided you can bait out the Silverhound from Graveyard. Like it's kind of a weird matchup, but yeah, overall, like this deck is kind of underpowered, not gonna lie. Like, and you're not favored going second. You are barely favored going first, just because you're going first, but you're not doing anything too unfair. And going second, like you are good at going second, but again, going second is just not ideal. But yeah, it's better than Tenpai. Tenpai cannot go second, cannot go first. And because that has the blind second, and because it has the blind second, it's like it's fallen so off. Like it's just not a thing. Like imagine letting your opponent willingly do Mitsurugi combo, especially since with Maxi going from 2 to 1, you have access to you have less turn skips now. And if you're not turn skipping your opponent, you're throwing multiple hand traps at your opponent, and then you're doing all of that just so that your one starter gets hit by 1 hand trap and you still lose. Like that's ass. And if you're playing Striker 10 by going second, that's, I guess, maybe better against Draco Tail compared to the hand trap build, but like, I mean, that's still like scary, because then you're letting your opponent do their full Mitsurugi setup and also setting up Purification, so that makes that matchup harder. It makes the Liger, I assume you're gonna play also Liger Dancer if you're playing a blind second version of Tenpai. Like you just gotta, but yeah, it's just, this deck is weak to hand traps. Like straight up, it's weak to the actual non-engine. So like even if you wipe out their entire board, you can still lose to the one like hand trap they hold in their hand that you can't interact with. So like it's still, yeah, Tenpai has fallen off quite a bit. Like Gem Knight is way better than Tenpai as a going second deck. Like straight up, yeah, Gem Knight is like, do I want to put it better than pure Orcus? Maybe, even though like it's wild, because Gem Knight is also a blind second Gem Knight is obviously like, you know, pure Gem Knight, pure blind second Gem Knight deck, but it doesn't, unlike Tenpai, it doesn't also lose to 1 hand trap most of the time. So yeah, I guess Brilliant Fusion is like a crack card in this game. So yeah, if you were to play a blind second deck, I would not recommend playing Mikanko or or Tenpai, I would just recommend playing Blind Second Gem Knights as your going second deck. It is by far the best going second deck. It's not even close, frankly, for that matter, in my opinion. But yeah, at the same time, you're still playing a going second deck. You have all the problems of playing a going second deck. You don't lose as opposed to compared to like Striker Tenpai. You don't like lose to fucking Droll as hard or nearly as hard at all. So yeah, there's that. It's just low-key, I feel like the Fiendsmith Gem Knight deck is kind of maybe even better going second than, or as good as going second as the blind second Gem Knight deck, because the Fiendsmith Fiendsmith deck plays one of the best hand traps in the game, which is Herald of the Orange Light. And Herald of the Orange Light is one of the few hand traps, along with 5 mana, that can actually stop a Yummy card that's actually effective as a hand trap versus Yummy going second. Because like no matter what Yummy they summon, like they summon Cupsy, and the fact you herald it, you get rid of the Cupsy body. Now they don't have Surprise, and they don't have a body on the field. They have the hard draw Marshmallow, or they pass, or like another extender, or they pass. Herald versus any other monster linking into Snatchy for link 1 to place the field spell, you just hit the Snatchy, and then the Snatchy dies. They don't get the field spell, and then they have to have hard open a Marshmallow or a specific extender, such as with the Solfachord stuff, which is why I think the Solfachord stuff is so good, because they place fucking 3 of the best extenders in the entire game, which is like a happiness. But yeah, it's actually Herald of the Orange Light, one of the better hand traps, and it's not something Herald is not of Orange Light. It's not something you can really run in blind second Gem Knight that plays that many board breakers. You don't have like as high of a fairy count as you would like. But and yeah, going first, this deck is still fine. It has honestly, with Maxi going down to from 2 to 1, like this deck is pretty strong going first, because the Herald of the Orange Light, the same way it's good as a hand trap going second, it's good as hand trap protection going first. So like you can herald like Ashes, Maxis, Fool Losses, and then like go to town, and even search more fairies at the later in the turn with Ava. You're obviously there's no Floodgate anymore, there's no Christia, there's none of that stuff, and like quite frankly, I think the floodgates, some of the floodgates that people are playing are really quite gimmicky and not really worth it in my opinion. Just play straight up Fiendsmith Gem Knight interruptions, like have like maybe an IP, a Caesar, and like a couple heralds in hand plus hand traps, and that's good enough. So yeah, Fiendsmith Gem Knight, I'll put it up here. I think it's better than Orcus. And to be honest, it's the better version to play Gem Knight in my opinion. Still, not the better version to play Gem Knight is Tier Gem Knight. Tier Gem Knight is just straight up. I don't think there's an advantage to playing Tier Gem Knight over Fiendsmith Gem Knight. Like straight up, I just don't know. Like Tier is also like kind of bad into what's it called? Kind of bad into Draco Tail low key, because like Sting hurts and Sanctifier hurts. So like literally, if they have Sting and Sanctifier, you will never get a Tier fusion off, which is like that's lovely. Yeah, yeah. I also have not seen that many Tier. Like for how it's actually quite amazing for how popular Tier is as a deck. I've barely seen any Tier at all. Like that just shows like how rough it is, and like it plays way less non-engine than the Fiendsmith Gem Knight deck, so like it's harder going second. It honestly, the end board is low-key kind of worse than the Fiendsmith Gem Knight build, because the what's your end board? What are you adding on with adding the Tier cards? Like you're adding like a roll colors plus a couple Tier traps, and then maybe if you mill very high, if you mill very high roll, you get a snow and like a shuffler. So at the very high end, I guess it could be, so you can have a slightly better end board than Fiendsmith Gem Knight. But like, I mean, Fiendsmith Gem Knight can also play Medora. Like it also plays a shuffler that it can dump off of, Diviner. So like, yeah, and then it has a much better card quality, has much better hand traps, and yeah, I almost want to put a Tier Gem Knight down here, because like I don't see a valid reason to play Tier Gem Knight over the other 2 Gem Knight variants. And then if you're just playing straight up Tier without the Gem Knight cards, like that just feels even, I honestly feels even worse. So like, God, is this this might be a bit harsh. Putting Tier in Rogue right now, it feels a bit harsh, but like combined with the fact that I don't see any Tier almost at all, and like yeah. This might be a bit contentious one, putting Lab and Tier down in Rogue, but yeah. And then we have the other fusion deck, which is Branded, which also Branded low-key, like it's also kind of, I really don't like Branded in this format because like it's not even the best that plays the Branded cards. That would be Draco Tail, and what is the advantage to playing Branded right now? Because it's a deck that has basically not very much room for non-engine still. It's still a heavy engine deck. Struggles to go second now that Super Poly is honestly not even that great, and like Super Poly was one of its best assets at board breaking, but like Super Polying Draco Tail board is like what are you even accomplishing there? And then like the fact that all like half your deck gets turned off by Secretariat Dragon, and or like 2/3 of your deck gets turned off by Secretariat Dragon, being like your Cartagias, your Tuners, your Quen, and then like half your Albas fusions. It's like dude, you don't even, it's not even that great going first, to be honest, because like so many decks are playing so many hand traps. Like between Yummy and Draco Tail, these are like the two top decks. Both of them play like 15 plus hand traps, like depending on the variant. Like if you count 5 mana as a hand trap, which you absolutely should count 5 mana as a hand trap. So yeah, I do I put fucking Branded in Rogue? Like there's no dude, like there's no way, right? Is there anyone like let me check how popular even Branded is. Like is there even people playing Branded right now? Like Control F Branded? Dude, there's like 4 people at all in the NA player base that uses Master Duel meta have played Branded. There's as much Branded as there is Tier right now, which here I put in Rogue. It's like what about the popularity rankings? Is there any brands nowhere near trending in tournaments? Popularity rankings, it's nowhere near the. Are we at the point where we're putting Branded and Rogue here? Like, dog. It's well, I mean, this deck is due to get more support in the future. So I mean, it's not gonna, even if it's Rogue right now, it's not gonna stay in Rogue. It's definitely gonna get better in the future. As of right now, though. I really cannot recommend playing Branded in this format. It's just not something I can recommend at all. I can't. White Forest, it's something I can recommend better, even though White Forest also, it's like it's kind of sus because White Forest is such a dice roll dependent deck because it's a combo deck that puts on an extremely strong end board, and Loki, it's probably the only combo deck in the game that does not care that much about both maxi and full loss. So because like you just play a bunch of spell trap cards, so where a bunch of White Force and simple spoil spells trap cards, so where even if you get max seed or full loss, for one draw you can end on like multiple interruptions because all your trap cards you can and like quick play spells you can just set them and then use them on your opponent's turn, and then like synchro into a Silvera with woes. You can make a Guardian Chimera with what's it called, the simple spoils with White Forest. You have Asmina Deathers to summon like a soul, the Asmina Soul fusion. Like you have multiple interruptions that you can get for just 1 or at most 2 draws off of max seed. Like that's really nice. Droll, it's shit in the Droll. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but Droll is seeing less use because as you can tell, Droll is not very good against a lot of these decks up here. They mainly like the top 3 right now that you see, which is Yummy, Mitsurugi, and or Yummy, Draco Tail, and Malice. So yeah, but that being said, Malice and Yummy still do play Droll for self-drolling themselves, so I guess that it's still something you have to contend with. And going second, this deck is not good because you invest multiple cards, like everything, you have to discard cards and pitch cards to activate your effects, and then, interruption, that's kind of bad. But yeah, overall, White Forest was, I guess it's better than Blue Eyes. It's between the two white decks, White Dragons and White Women are better than White Dragons. So there, and then Stun. No, that's bro. Stun is okay. It's amazing. We are at a point where floodgates are actually actively bad because there's the meta is too diverse right now to a point where there's no floodgate that hits everything that you want. Even the monster floodgates, besides Fossil Dine and Pachycephalo. But you can't search that shit unless you play 7th Tachyon in your stun deck to go -1 with. That is not... Yeah. The bear statues are not good. You normal summon the Water Barrier statue, your opponent goes 5 mana into Gulimel. You normal summon Earth Barrier statue, your opponent goes 5 mana into Arthalion. You normal summon like Fire Barrier statue. I guess Fire Barrier statue is the only one that's like doesn't get cooked by all of this stuff. Even then, it's like, I mean, that's the only Barrier statue that's not ass. Cause like Light Barrier statue, Yummy monsters, lol. Yeah, and then your floodgates like what? Soul Drain against Yummy, lol. Like Tisabu tier can be only one against Draco Tail. It's like not really that great either. Like it's like man, this is yeah. When like your deck is predicated on winning the coin flip, going first, and then shutting your opponent off floodgates, and then half your floodgates don't even shut down your opponent at all. It's not like there's a reason we haven't seen stun almost have any success at all basically since like the introduction of Draco Tail, because like it's just not like it's really not a thing. Voice is voice. So voice is voice. Assless ass. This deck, low key, it's kind of ass. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it doesn't have a good matchup against Draco Tail. Like voice is voice is at its best when Saravis is a good card, because Saravis is a crap card that can negate 2 special summons and banish opponents. So like when this was just playing, when it was just Rizios and Malice, there was actually something there with voice is voice. But now there's a bunch of Draco Tail cards, there's a bunch of Mitsurugi cards, which, mind you, Mitsurugi cards are a complete nightmare to deal with voice is voice. It's the fact that they don't target, so that your targeting protection doesn't matter, and they just blow up your field on summon, and it's like they're also big. Like if they have Habakiri plus Murakumo on the field, they can just run they can okay, well, I guess they can run over. They're like 100 life points short of running over the Skull Guardian, but the Skull Guardian, I mean, like you don't like, it's really not in your favor. Like doing that, like its benefit is that it's good into Maxi, good into Fool Loss, which Maxi going to 1 unironically probably hurts Voice's voice, because like now that advantage matters less, and it's like, is there any, I mean, people have been saying, play Mitsurugi voices. That's broken. Like, why would I play Mitsurugi voices voice when Mitsurugi voices voice is like the 10th best Mitsurugi deck? Okay, like any deck can play Mitsurugi cards. Okay, that doesn't make voices voice special because they can play Mitsurugi cards. I guess it's slightly better because I guess you can have Diviner to with Miracle Raven is out now, so Diviner plus Habakiri actually does quite a bit for the deck. But like, I mean, at that point, like, why are you playing the voices cards in your Mitsurugi deck? Just play the better ritual cards and play non-engine instead of like fucking voices cards that are so bad going. I can't, man. Maybe it's okay versus Yummy, because Yummy is not, you can like Saravis versus Yummy, it's okay, but even then it's not that. I mean, yeah, you can negate the Link 1, I guess. You can negate Snatchy. It's not terrible. If they're playing Mitsurugi, it is kind of terrible, because then the Mitsurugi just pops the Saravis, and it's like, oh, what do you freaking do? Yeah. I can't say I recommend playing Voices Voice in this format either, to be honest. Mermail also... Mermail is low-key really bad to Yummy. Like, I haven't mentioned Herald as much as I have, which I probably should have, because Herald is like the main way that Yummy can beat Draco Tail, by sticking a Herald and keeping it there. And this is Mermail is like possibly the worst deck in the Herald in the entire game, because it's everything either sends water monsters from hand or deck, and you can't do that shit with Herald on the field. So like, you normal summon Net the Abyss Prince into a Herald, and then what? I don't activate its effect because you can't do shit. You can't run over the Herald because the Net Abyss is 800. You're gonna go super minus, discarding cards, banishing cards from your hand, just to summon big monsters to be able to beat over a Herald, and then you can't OTK them. Like, it's so bad. And then going first, like, I guess it's still good going first, but like at the same time, the only way to stop Mermail is by playing hand traps. And these decks play so many goddamn hand traps now between Yummy and then Draco Tail that this is like the one meta where like if you go first, you're just not guaranteed to be able to combo off, because there's like one hand trap you can play through, 2 hand traps you can play through half the time, and then like when they start like playing triple fool, every deck is playing triple Fool Loss right now as well, and triple Fool Loss versus the hand rip deck, obviously it doesn't interact very well when you're trying to hand rip your opponent for like 3 cards, but then you're giving them 3 cards to draw off the Fool Loss. Like what have you really accomplished there? Yeah, it's yeah, I also like cannot really recommend playing Mermill right now either. It's like at best Mermill is like a 50-50 deck, and it is at best, because there's no chance in hell you're winning going second, short of resolving Fool Loss, which they can do the same to you. So like that's not really something you gain. It's like your deck is not good into Fool Loss. Like, it's pretty bad into Fool Loss, and like Droll as well. It's like yeah, I can't recommend Mermill that much either, unfortunately. And then or I guess fortunately, because who the hell wants to go second and play against Mermill, right? Let's be honest here. And then Centurion. Yeah. Fortunately, no. The Draco Tail matchup is way too ass. Like, Secretary Dragon alone solos your deck. I don't know how you beat a single Secretarian Dragon with fucking any Centurion build. I'm gonna be honest right there. You have one thing that you have going for you. That is a Light Dark Chaos Angel. And decks struggle to out Light Dark Chaos Angel. That is absolutely it. That's all you have as a Centurion. And I'm pretty sure there are much better decks like at baking Light Dark Chaos Angel than fucking Centurion. Because Centurion loses to 1 hand trap as well. Like, and there are decks that are playing as much hand traps as you that are way better into hand traps than you are. Like, you are throwing 2-3 hand traps at Yummy, and they are still making a board. The Yummy opponent throws 1 hand trap at you, throws 1 purge on your Primera, and your turn could end. Very realistically, it's so, yeah. This deck is so power creep right now. The concept of a mid range deck that plays a ton of hand traps with 1-card combos, that's outdated, because like the meta decks right now, the combo decks are the decks that are playing tons of hand traps and doing 1-card combos, and they just end on a significant board, and they can also play through hand traps, whereas this deck absolutely cannot. This is like a dying breed of Yu-Gi-Oh decks that are just mid-range, but also not super combo decks that don't actually end on a FTK end board, despite having 1-card combos and playing all those hand traps. And the last deck here, so this is the deck that I've been seeing flying around randomly. It's the Monarch deck. It's not the Monarch deck that you think it is, okay? Unless you played against it. This is the Monarch deck. This is the fucking resolves the Borg, and when you resolve the Borg, you banish your opponent's entire extra deck, or most of your opponent's extra deck. Then you send 3 Dirac Meteor and 3 Dirac Asteros to the graveyard. So that way you have 3. You rip most of your opponent's extra deck, and then you have 3 board wipes. So it's basically an FTK deck. And like most FTK decks, what do you do going second? Don't ask. Do not ask. What do you do if you get drolled or like hit on a if you get drolled? Don't ask. This deck is like don't play this shit. Like please don't play this shit. Like this is the one of the most toxic. Like somehow Monarchs can play Domain and like flag your opponent out of the game, and somehow that is the less toxic way to play Monarchs, because the other way to play Monarchs is fucking ripping your opponent's entire fucking extra deck out. Like that's yeah, it's not. Needless to say, it's not good. But like, I've just seen it flying around randomly, and I've seen it in a Duelist Cup. I've seen it, like, I don't know how this deck got so popular. When like what is attractive about this deck? It's not like this deck is even cheap, because the Dirac extra deck costs a lot of URs too. I don't know where this deck came from and why this deck is here, but here we are. Anyways, yeah, this is my take on the current best decks in Master Duel right now, and let me know what you disagree with and what I got wrong. I am sure the moment I upload this, I'm gonna realize like a bunch of arrows that I would immediately switch up. But as of right now, yeah, here's how it is. And once we adjusted for the new bans we got as well, and once we get confirmation on the new packs, I'll probably update this tier list to include the new cards as well. But yeah, and thank you for watching. This is another fucking long ass hour plus video where I'm just rambling on and on. So yeah, I thank you for watching this far.